I'll admit, sometimes I have the thought, we're breastfeeding, so what exactly am I supposed to do? So, you just turn over and go, well, we'll start with that, and, if that doesn't work, we'll move on to something else, and I'll volunteer at hour number 2. And, so I don't think we always try to ignore it, but it's sort of just inevitable sometimes that we don't hear it or we decide that there's not a whole lot we can do. I'll admit I feel a little guilty with my second one, but it was doctor's advice that she suggested now that we have 2 that I should sleep in another bedroom so that I could have more energy for our first daughter, because once you have 2, suddenly you've got one who wants your attention in the morning and has had a good night's sleep, and another one who's kept you up all night and you're both grumpy. So I don't know, I thought that was good advice. She has admitted to me now that she's a little resentful that I got a good night's sleep. So I don't know if it worked or not. So my next question was, I didn't write down the full question, but it was essentially what is the hardest and the best moments of being a dad. I'd say the hardest moment is during tax season especially. I tend to work about 7 to 6, come home, have dinner for an hour, and then work for another hour or so. So the hardest time is when I'm leaving at about 7 in the morning and both kids are just screaming, and you never feel more guilty than when you're leaving with screaming children, but you have to go to work because you have so much to do at work. And a lot of times you're thinking about it on and off for at least half an hour to an hour until you're so engrossed that you forgot anything that was going on at home at all. So I'd say that's definitely the hardest part of being a dad, is just knowing that there's a problem at home and sometimes you can't just take off or show up late and help out. The funniest thing, some of the funniest things that my kids do is, we're trying to teach body parts, and so, everyone has a euphemism for, your lady parts and your man parts. And so, my daughter knows what a vagina is and what a penis is. So she was drawing me a picture the other day, and she said, "Look, Daddy, I drew you." And I even included the penis in there. Thankfully, nobody else was around. And I can tell you, too, that, you guys are used to having every body part of yours is stared at constantly. There's no privacy. And there really isn't much more as a dad. There's nothing more amusing than having 2 children staring up at you as you use the bathroom and commenting about what they're seeing. So my final question is, what advice would you offer a couple about to become first-time parents? I would assume that 99.9% of you probably have a child if you're in MOPS, but I'm sure there's at least someone somewhere, just because I said that, that's pregnant and has no children. But I thought some of these are good because I've had 2 children now, and it's amazing how you change between 1 child and 2. Suddenly you're doing you're not a 1-to-1 anymore, and life changes quite a bit. So my first thought was, accept that you can't do everything right and that you will fail. When you see pictures online, it's tempting. You see those gorgeous pictures and they look like they're all going well. I can think of a story once, the first time we gave my daughter peanut butter, which wasn't a good thought, but in our mind it was about 2 hours before we were going to do a Christmas photo shoot. And it turns out she's allergic to peanuts. So you can imagine her face had turned all pink, and we were thinking, oh my gosh, is she going to breathe? Because it was nap time too. Do we put her down for nap time, or do we leave her up to keep an eye on her? And so we decided to put her down, and thankfully everything cleared up right before pictures. And so you see these gorgeous pictures of my daughter, and you never know that right behind that, was a fairly serious event. And so I just remind you that, while a lot of parents may look like they've got it going on, when you look behind the scenes, we're all just trying to struggle to make it through the day and to make memories. My second thought is, when your child's acting sick or just that you know something's not right, don't Google it. I can think of a story, I don't remember what it was. I think it was right after, I don't know, it was either baby dedication or a birthday. My in-laws and my parents were here, and we were playing outside, and they were kind of throwing him up in the air, and we saw something orange coming out of his nose. If you Google that, it's going to tell you that they may be losing spinal fluid, and that you need to go to the ER immediately. That's the first thing you're going to find, and that they may have to do some kind of, I don't know, spinal tap. I don't know anything about the medical industry. But when you stop for a moment and take a breath, we thought, we had chili, and chili is kind of an orangish color. And we finally decided that it was just acid reflux, and apparently spinning your child upside down will help it come out of the nose. So I just warn you, don't Google it, because the first thing that always comes up with Googling is some kind of rare disease that your child will be dead in 24 hours, and that you need to rush and go to the ER at 2 o'clock in the morning and sit around for 3 hours for them to tell you that your child's okay, and if any symptoms persist, call your pediatrician on Monday. My third thought is, don't stress over milk supply. We had this struggle twice, and we finally came to the realization that it's okay to supplement with formula. Don't stress yourself out, because it stresses Dad too, when you're constantly worried about, do I have enough milk? Is my child starving? I'm pretty sure every one of you, because Target and Facebook and everybody knows if you're pregnant before you even do. And they send you those little things in the mail. Just save those, because you never know if you're going to use them. And if you don't end up using them after you're done with milk, then give it to a friend or donate it. Let's see. It's just not worth the stress. Let's see here. Rest. Please rest. When you have that first child, you want to keep your same life the way it always was, but there's nothing that adds more stress to a dad's. I'm in trouble now, I'm turning off. Nothing adds more stress to a dad after working all day and you're exhausted. And of course you're going to be exhausted no matter what, but because you wanted to keep the house perfectly clean, and now you're exhausted. My goodness. And you're just tired. My time limit's up. So take a nap and don't feel guilty. We'd rather you have energy for us. Alright, we'll try again. We'd rather you have energy for us and the kids than to have the perfect house. And to go along with that, say yes to help. If grandma or a friend offers to take your kid for an hour or two, take it. Enjoy what life's like on the outside. Remember that you are still a person, and that you are allowed to be unchanged from your child, even if you're breastfeeding. There's pumping, there's feeding the child right before you leave. We can handle it. And to go along with that is, as new dads, I'm sure if I surveyed, why not? How many of you have ever been to a baby shower before you had a child? And how many of those people held that baby or another baby that came along to the shower? Pretty much all of you, I would assume, have either babysitting or baby holding experience. But I think most of us dads would admit that basically before we had children, we had little to no experience with children, unless we're the youngest and we had nieces and nephews. And even then, we did our best to stay away from diapers and holding small children. So my advice to a new dad is to just be patient. He'll come around, and sometimes you may have to force the child on the dad. Because we won't admit it, but we're a little intimidated because you guys have gone to classes, and every time you girls get around, they discuss babies, and do you breastfeed, do you bottle feed, what's the right way to hold a baby, what's the right way to burp them, And I would just say that just kind of gently prod a dad to learn, and to even occasionally leave the baby with the dad. Because I would say, isn't the most terrifying thing the first hour you've ever spent alone? When mom leaves the baby with you, and the baby's crying, and you don't know what to do, and, after a couple of those experiences, now, I wouldn't say I'm unshakable, but, you just kind of roll with the punches, and you'll figure it out. I'm doing it again. But that's my advice, is just push the dad into it, because that's what they need, and they want it. And, two more. Spend time with each other. I can't tell you, once you have children, it's just, you're so focused on the baby, just don't forget about dads, because there's nothing that's worse than having a long day at work and feeling like you just kind of a visitor in your own house, because the minute you get home, you never speak with your wife. It's just, here, take the baby, or, let me tell you about what's going on. Don't forget that dads need time with you too, and the reason they married you in the first place is because they love you and they want to spend time with you. And my final thought is, whether or not you have to work, I would say, if you can, just try not to work, and please don't get into those. I'm sure some of you do it. Don't get into the Mary Kays and the R bonds and that stuff. You can trust me as an accountant. I have one lady that I know who gets, after expenses, $60,000 in income, but that's the rarity. I think most of you, your time is more valuable than constantly hosting parties, and you made $40 off of 6, 7, 8 hours worth of work. I, as a dad, would much prefer spending that time with you than finding that your weekends you're constantly gone, and that I never see you, because when I have time off, you're busy trying to make a few bucks here or there. It's not worth it. Just, if you need the money, just get a part-time job, and if not, just enjoy your child, because this time goes really fast. And that's all I have to say.
Can everybody hear me? Yeah. All right, I'll try to talk a little bit louder. We're having microphone issues. My name is Matthew Heap. I'm married to the beautiful Tiffany Heap right there. We have been happily married, which is something I'm the most proud of, for about 15 years. I have 4 kids. They are aged 7, 5, 3, and 7 months. And I'm a lawyer, so background information about me. I've got 3 questions. I'm going to try my best to answer them succinctly but truthfully. The thing I was most excited about when Tiffany asked me if I would do this was I like answering questions, and I think it's important in any kind of relationship, whether it's a marriage or whether it's just the relationship between me and you guys right now, to be honest and to communicate with each other. So my first question is, what is something your wife does that makes parenting easier? And I'm going to jump off something Andy said, and I'm going to modify the question just a little bit. I'm going to tell you something that Tiffany is getting better at. Okay, and that's not to be in any way offensive to her. What he said is absolutely true, guys. Here's the answer. I'm going to say it in 2 words: self-care. Because Tiffany once said something to me that stuck in my head. She said, to be a mom is to be needed by everyone. And I was like, that's true. Because all I see her do all day long, whether I'm at home or whether I'm coming home, is our first son will run up to her and say, I have to do this right now, I've got an art project to do. And right in the middle of getting all the art supplies out, my second son will run up and say, I want to play trains. And she'll say, okay, let's play trains in a second. And then right in the middle of that, our third son will run up and say, I need to eat right now. Can you guys? And she'll do that all day long, okay? And then I'll come home. And the baby, yeah, there's a 4th one. It's horrible. That was a joke. And then, it was a joke. It's fun. And then I, as a dad, have the gall to come home after she's put up with that all day long. and say, I need you to, right? And that's why I get she wants to hand me the baby. She wants to do all those things, and that's fine. That's my job as a dad. But then I think the mistake sometimes is instead of taking that time for self-care, she'll do something else. And we've had a conversation about you've got to take time for yourself. You are more than just a mother. You're more than just a mother and a wife. You are a mother and a wife and whoever you were before you got married and had kids. And whatever it is that you loved about yourself in your own life is what made us fall in love with you. And that's what we need from you. And inevitably, what's going to happen is there's going to be a blow up. I can give you a great example. Last weekend, we were up, our kids, no matter what time they go to bed, they will wake up at 7 o'clock, okay? And we got up, and they went outside and they played for about 30 minutes. And then we wanted to take them to the fair. And our third child didn't want to go to the fair. And so he comes in and he just melts down, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs. And I can't take it. Like, I'm just, for whatever reason, I didn't sleep well that night. I'm like, I cannot deal with this. And she walks down with absolute grace. She just got out of bed and calms him down. Sometimes I do that, sometimes she does it. But the point is, if she's so tired and so stressed, and she hasn't taken any time for herself, that she doesn't have the energy reserve to do that, then what became a beautiful moment of me seeing my wife be wonderful, instead she blows up and the whole family craters. You've got to take care of yourself. To be a mom means to be needed by everybody. But if you're going to be good at that, you've got to have that reserve within yourself for those emergency moments when it really matters. And that may mean cleaning less. It may mean taking a little bit less time with the less important things in life and finding out why you are who you are, what makes you happy, and taking time to do that. So that makes parenting easier because I have an equal partner who is there and able to help fight the battle versus someone who's constantly and always stressed with very good reason. And I think moms really struggle with that because, this leads to my second question, all parents have guilt, right? My second question is, to read it exactly, do you ever experience dad guilt, and how can your wife help alleviate that? Of course I experience dad guilt. I would say the number one or very high ranking measure of what makes a good parent is how much guilt you feel about what a bad job you're doing. And that's true, right? If you wake up every morning going, I'm just killing it, right? I got all the answers. That's probably because you're not lying awake at night wondering how can I be a better dad or a better mom. And so that guilt is always inevitably going to be there. And the question is, do I ever experience dad guilt? Of course I do. What's the most guilty I feel? I can tell you the answer to that straight away. I don't know if this is in every relationship. I don't know if it's just our relationship dynamic. I don't know if it's nature or nurture or whatever. I'm the disciplinarian that the kids listen to more. We both take discipline. But if I say, do this now, they're more likely to listen to me than they do my wife. And that's not a criticism of her, it just seems to be a natural reality. But I wake up in the morning and I go to work, and I work from, I leave at 7, I get back at 5:30 or something like that. My kids go to bed at 8. Factor in dinner, family dinner, reading books, bath, brushing teeth, whatever. I'm lucky if I get an hour a day with my kids of quality time, right? I mean, yes, I get to read them, but quality time, I get an hour. When I come home and I know Tiffany's had a hard day and I have to spend some huge portion of that hour being the disciplinarian, I feel like, well, great job today, Dad. Your kid's memory of you is Dad went to work and then he came home and got on me. And there is a way to do discipline with grace and mercy that you can teach your kids, and they will eventually love you for it. But it hurts sometimes as a dad to have to do that, right? Because I don't want to think my kid's best memory of me today was when I got on with them. And so the best thing I think you guys can do to help with that particular aspect of it is you rely on your husband in some ways to be the disciplinarian. Also make sure you give him opportunities to be the source of love for the kids. right? I hate the idea, and Tiffany does not do this. She's wonderful about it. But I've heard of people who say, just wait till your dad gets home. I don't want my kids to be afraid of me. Please don't do that, right? It's okay to say, Dad's on. We have a rule that no matter how bad we think the other person's decision was, when the kids come to us to question it, we always say, I support mommy, or I support daddy. Don't make us the bad guy, because the dad guilt is already there. I already have so little time. I already have to use it on discipline. Give me that quality time when we can, and talk about that in a positive way. Last but not least, what is your favorite thing to do as a family? This is an easy one. Travel is our answer. Tiffany got some great advice. I don't know if she got it from MOPS or wherever. And that was, when you have kids, put them in the car seat and drive. Because if you do it when they're 1 month old, they will scream and scream and scream and scream. But by the time they're 4, they're used to it. And so we can load all our kids into the car and we can go to Dallas for a weekend, or we can go to Oklahoma City for a weekend, and they don't scream the whole time. It's incredibly relaxing because they sit there and they're calm because they're used to it. And we can get away and we can make memories as a family. And so my favorite thing to do as a family is travel, okay? Even, I don't mean big expensive trips. I mean, put your kids in the car and make memories by going to the Dallas Zoo, okay? It's awesome. I would highly recommend it. Outside of that, the only other thing, and then I will shut up and pass the microphone, we have movie night, which is a really simple thing, and I love it for 2 reasons. It's a routine, and kids thrive on routine. They love to know Friday night, Saturday night, whatever you pick, is movie night. And it means we're all going to sit down, we're all going to turn off our phones, and we're going to watch a movie together. And it's always something child appropriate, and then we can talk about it, and we can eat pizza. And it's simple time every week for us all to do something together. And it costs $12 to subscribe to Netflix and have more movies than you'll ever watch. Okay? So, thank you, I appreciate it. I don't know if any of that was helpful, but it's truthful, so there you go.
The first question they gave me was, how do you encourage your children to follow Christ? So, I wanted to get the question out there because it's kind of all ties together somewhat. My children are in their 30s, so I'm into the grandkids. So I've discovered all these things that I didn't know existed before. When we had kids, you know, they'll say, you need to go get number 3 nipple, and I'm like, you have sizes? So, you know, those kinds of things where I get to catch up and I get to re-experience a bunch of those kinds of things. But to explain a little bit about me, and I am retired. I'm a retired police officer. I had 34 years. Currently, most of what I do is a nonprofit. I started a nonprofit. It's called First Responder Ministries, and for chaplains that go around and help first responders and whatnot. So they made a mistake. They gave me a microphone to a preacher.
Yeah.
And then they gave me preacher questions.
Yeah.
No, I'll keep it short. But to get your children to follow Christ is really, there's lots of little things you can do. You can make sure they have all the books and you read them books and whatnot about the stories from the Old Testament. You can make sure the songs you sing and whatnot are oriented and whatnot. But the biggest thing, and the thing that runs through all 3 of these questions they have for me, is you have to live it. How many times have you gone out, and this is kind of being a police officer, we go out to these houses where the family doesn't get along, and they're screaming and they're throwing plates, and it is not good, and they need a referee, you know, kind of deal. Well, you notice the kids that are around. Well, 20 years later, you're getting phone calls to go, and it's their house, and they're throwing plates and screaming at each other, and you're the only book they're going to read. Okay? Is that at home? You're going to have to be the example. And I know it's a big weight on your shoulders to a degree, but what they see is what they're going to do when they get out. If your household, well, for instance, seeing it at the police department, If your household's a bunch of smokers in the house, good chance your kid's gonna smoke. If you drink a lot, and I've seen this because I've got some family on one side that has done this, and they think that it's absolutely okay to be drunk on the weekends. You know, kind of deal. They drink a lot, and it bothers me, kind of deal. But on the weekends now, they're kids. They'll go out and barbecue, and they drink a lot. But it's because that's what they think is normal. That's what you have to set for them. And so for you to encourage them to be Christians, you need to show them how to be a Christian. Because that's what they're looking at you for. Sorry, gotta look it up. The second question had to do with the difference in parenting between boys and girls. Well, when they're little bitty, there's not a whole lot of difference. As they get older, you begin to notice some of the differences. And I had a boy and a girl. And the difference between them was the boy likes action. He's the guy that would be, he's pushing his truck along and whatnot. He turned it upside down, trying to figure out how that works. These are the wheels and all this kind of stuff, where the girl was more into feelings and some things, and a lot more aware of those kinds of things than he was. So there was a difference in the way I parented them, in that I could give the mean mug to my daughter, and she quit. That was the end of it. But to my son, not so much. He had to have a little action occasionally. And as they get older, there's a difference in the way you can parent them, because you need to know that no means no. Okay, one of the biggest things that I see that is a problem, and I was guilty of it on occasion too, is you tell them no and then let them do it. That's a mixed message, so the next time they do it, and you said no, well, maybe he doesn't really mean no, and you're going to have all kinds of issues. So no means to be no, and if you have to do something negative, and that depends on what your negative is for discipline. And it depends on what your child responds to. Like I say, I could mean mug my daughter, and that was good enough. I very rarely had any problems with her, and I didn't have to stick her in the corner. Occasionally I had to stick my son in the corner and take away his ability to have action. Those kinds of things. So as long as you know what a negative is for them, taking away their phone, at some point, for my daughter, taking away her phone when she was a little bit older, that was bad. So you just need to know your children well enough to know how to direct them in life, and to remember that, once again, you're the book they're reading. So they look at you, and how do you respond to a fight with your husband? How do you respond when the guy cuts you off in traffic? And me, it's not so good. Kind of deal. But they're looking at you to see what it is, and you need to be cognizant of that fact. Exactly how they can do the last one. What's a tough situation you've encountered as a dad, and how did you overcome it? I think the hardest things for me being a parent was, do I let them struggle? Or do I need to run in and fix it? And you're wanting to run in and fix it. But in a lot of occasions, you learn a whole lot more if you do it wrong. Because what's the saying? I'll never do that again. And usually you won't. Because you remember what that does, and that's not good, and so we're going to do it that way. So letting them learn things on their own. Hopefully they've watched you, and you've done a good enough job of fixing things and doing things to that order, that they have a system that they can use, fall back on to do those kinds of things. But after they've, made a mistake, you go back and you go, okay, now if that was me, I probably wouldn't have hit it. No. Those kinds of things. That would be one where you would go and actually step in. For instance, we had, my daughter was a pretty sharp cookie, and she was on honor roll for that semester, and her grandfather died. So we had to go to the funeral. So we missed 2 days of school. And they took her off the honor roll because she missed 2 days of school. That's a time to step in. Those kinds of things. You just have to know, when do I step in and when do I let them falter. But don't be afraid to let them drown a little bit. It's not going to hurt them. They're going to learn from it. And I don't know what the deal is with the public now, but they feel like that if I make a mistake, oh my goodness, this would be terrible if I actually made a mistake. Well, a mistake is the first step to getting it right. So everybody makes mistakes. It's okay. Allow yourself to do it. You yourself making mistakes is not a big problem. You too are learning from this. And they need to know from you making mistakes and it being okay, that it's okay for them to make mistakes. Once again, this all ties together. You're the only book they're going to read.
Well done. Okay. A lot of wisdom in this room. So proud to be part of this, guys. It's an honor to speak with you. My beautiful wife, Kitty, is back there. So our story is we have 3 adult children now, 25. We have a 23-year-old and a almost 20-year-old. So we are right where you were. Remember when it was just you and your husband? Well, now our kids are out of college and one is in college, so it's just me and Kippy. So we're in a new season. We love it. It's called Honeymoon. It is fantastic. All right, so that's where we are. And we're thinking about having another kid. We like it so much. We're thinking about stopping her. That's why she's got me here at MOPS. But so here's the question I was given, and I was like, really? How can you overcome differences in parenting styles with your spouse? And I just said, submit to your wife. I was like, no, what we have found after doing it for years is it was really interesting because your backgrounds are going to play a role here, how you were parented, what you believe, your belief systems, all those things. And it was really interesting because we come from different backgrounds and we bring different strengths and qualities. And Kippy, her style of parenting from her parents was a little bit more permissive. I mean, really, she still remembers the exact day she almost got a spanking. I remember the exact day I almost didn't get a spanking. Okay, so it was entirely different parenting styles that we brought to our marriage. And it's interesting because when you look at this, for me, I was more the authoritarian style, right? Do it or I'll, fill in the blank, right? And so for us, we really had to have some flex. Here's what we never flexed on, was the foundation of our values. Truth is truth, no matter what your style is. Okay, we don't lie. We don't cheat, we don't hit, we don't bite, whatever. And at first, Kitty was like, well, I don't think his brother meant to bite him on the forehead. I think it was an accident. Okay, so we had a lot of, we were both on those extremes. So what we had found was there really was a better way for us to parent in our styling. And we know the term, you may know the term, it's just authoritative parenting. Where, Scripture tells us under this, children, obey your parents. This is the right thing to do because God has placed them in authority over you. And what that means is you just have to be loving and consistent in your parenting and in your discipline. I love what Keith said. He said, he could just stare at his daughter and she would obey, right? We have 3 boys. They all respond differently. So you are going to have some flex in your style. What works on one may not work on the other. But here's what you got to be in agreement on. You got to be on agreement what's right and what's wrong, right? There are going to be black and whites, and there are going to be gray situations. And it's so wonderful when they're really young because it's just, no, stop running, yes, don't do this, and all those type of styles. But what I can encourage you is just be of one mind. Because it's going to get different. By the time your littles turn to middles, and the middles go to junior high, and then you have the teenage years, and then the young adults, your style's going to change. But the values don't. Buchanan's tell the truth. That's what we do. It never changes. But the discipline and the style changes a little bit. So, what can we do to overcome our styles? Build a foundation, identify your styles, talk through them, and then just work together as a couple for the rest of your life. You are a parent for life. It never ends. It never ends. Even where we are, it never ends. So, next question I had is, how can a mother help her husband raise boys? Boys will keep you on your toes. If you're a mom of boys, you know, they're competitive, they're active, they get bored really fast, right? They have a single focus, and most times they're just trying to conquer something, or someone, or the day. Our second child would wake up, and he was like, he knew mom would be in the way of some sort of fun that he wanted to have. And he would, in his mind, he says, today is a good day to die for the cause. And he's going to take home mom, right? And that's just how it's going to work. And you have those. But as men, we love this about our kids. And here's what we know, and all the men have really alluded to this. You're doing the lion's share of parenting. You really are. We get that, when Matt said, he gets an hour a night. We get, but our influence goes beyond that. So men, here's what we need from you guys. We do need your encouragement, but gosh, we need your wisdom. You see things we can't see. I look at my boys that are all happy, healthy, blah, blah, blah. They look fine. And mom's like, hey, you notice that youngest one there? Yeah. See his eye? You see how pink it is? You see that? I'm like, no, it looks fine. Like, no, it's about to run through the whole family. We're about to all get pink eye. Right? She sees things. You see things we can't. And as they grow, you're going to see things in their heart that we can't. They give you the keys to their heart, only you. You're their mom, you're their very first love, and you have the ability to unlock it. And so the follow-up question to that was, what does a son need from his mother? And you have this indelible imprint on your sons. You shape and mold their minds, but you shape their hearts in a big way. And you also shape their dreams and desires. And I will say this, what does your son need, much like your husband? He just needs to know you respect him. Even as a toddler. You always say, oh, I love you. Oh, I love you. You need to say, oh, I respect you. Look how you helped your sister up. Oh, I respect the way you shook that man's hand. Don't say I love how you did that. Doesn't speak his love language. He's vying for your respect just like the husband would. So he wants to be respected. Here's the other thing. He wants to protect you from the time he is 18 months on. He's growing. He learns to walk. He wants to protect you. So let him. Make him open those doors. Right? Make him go behind you in line. Right? Make him let his sisters go first. And we would do something and Kippy hated it. But I'd be like, okay, guys, I'm the bull. We're about to turn the bull loose, and the bull's going to go get mom. And I get down on all fours. I'm going to see what you got. Can you protect mom from the bull? And oh my gosh, they would hit me with stuff, and they would scream, and they would get, these guys, 3 of them would do everything they could do to protect their mom. And they need to, because women and children first is what we train. And every night when we close in prayer, we say this as Buchanan men. We protect the innocent, and we defend the weak. Protect the innocent, we defend the weak. We protect the innocent, we defend the weak. And they will draw on that when they're in junior high, when they're in high school. If you don't want them to bully, teach them that line. Teach them that line. They're going to protect those, and they're going to defend them. Why? Because they know who to protect. So that's what we did, remote model. Now, what does he need? I think sometimes it's fun to talk about what they don't need. Don't be the smother mother. Wow, for boys, that's a fun one to have. Oh, your smother mother's here. Wow. She gonna play kickball with all of us too? Okay. And yes, I want to encourage you at a certain age you should, right? So the overprotective stuff doesn't go well, but here's the other thing, don't be a pushover. They need strong women in their lives, right? I married the kindest woman in the world, and all three boys thought she was the meanest lady they'd ever met. Mean moms raise great men. I'm gonna be truthful with you. There's a season where I thought she was the meanest lady I'd ever met too. Wow, right? So dudes, just respect them, need them, believe in them, and love them. I mean, that's the best you can do. The final question I had, how do you prioritize your marriage in the midst of family and having jobs? These guys have touched on it. I mean, it's really simple. It's just faith first, family second, friends next, and then work that job in there. But don't forget it. Don't forget that balance. Don't forget that balance. Do fun things. Moms of boys, do fun things with them. Let them, when it rains, scream like a girl, say, oh my gosh, it's raining, get outside, everybody, get outside. Kippy would do that with the boys. She got some quiet time, they got wet, they played in the mud. It was awesome. She's driving along the highway, all of her young boys are in the car, she screeches to a halt. Why? Because it's Canadian geese season. And if you've ever seen cornfield or the fields that they've already harvested, thousands of Canadian geese out there say, boys, go get me a geese. And they will run out there thinking they can get one. And thousands of birds fly up, right? And they love it. So just be a great boy mom. Be a great boy mom. But just get your priorities. Help us men get our priorities right. Faith, family, and friends. So, we can say.
Hi, my name is Michael Gordy. Haley's my oldest daughter. I work for Health and Human Services, Texas. I'm a state inspector. I inspect foster homes and group homes that have mentally challenged individuals in them, so I travel a lot. So I was traveling this week and got the questions while I was on the road, so pardon me, I started to look at them. First one is, and I don't know if you guys know, but Haley's adopted. My wife and I couldn't have children. We tried for about 5 years. My wife, bless her heart, she took it really hard that we couldn't, she had a tubal pregnancy. First time, doctor fixed it. Second time we got pregnant, she lost a tube and an ovary, but then Haley came around and we were blessed by God. And then the third tubal pregnancy, she had to have a total hysterectomy at the age of 31. So, then along, we were able to adopt her sister. That became her sister. So we, in retrospect, God had a plan for us. We always thought we'd have a lot of kids, but He knew that there was 2 beautiful girls out there that needed mom and dad. So we told them that we didn't have them, or my wife would tell them that you weren't in my tummy, but you were always in my heart. So that's how it happened. So, what is one thing as a parent that you are really glad you did? Parenting. I mean, everything about parenting. I mean, we waited so long to have kids. We would fight over who's going to change the next diaper, or who's going to feed her the next time. We did everything. Who's going to hold her in church? I mean, we would fight over all that. Back then, I was in pharmaceutical sales, so I traveled a lot. So I would try to go to their school at least once or twice a month, have lunch with both of them. And then when I was in town, I tried to have a daddy-daughter date with both of them until they got older and started fighting. Then we had separate daughter dates. But I mean, I loved every aspect of it. I tried to be into every aspect of their lives. If they were in sports, I tried to coach it. If I couldn't coach it, I would be an assistant coach and just try to support all the kids. Everything was great. So as a parent, for me, everything was, I couldn't beat it. Well, let me see, the next question was, I'm sorry, I didn't bring my reading glasses. Okay. What advice do you have for raising girls? How can we support our husbands in raising confident daughters? One thing I did a long time ago, whenever I traveled a lot, I used to go to the library and get CDs, books on CD, and I listened to, all these different kinds of stories. But probably the best one that I ever listened to was Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I really learned a lot about my wife and my daughters then. If you want to learn about your husband and why he does the crazy things he does, that's probably a good book to look into, or audio tape. But as far as raising girls, I was kind of like Matt, where I was the wait till your dad gets home kind of thing. I wasn't afraid to spank. We never did. I think Haley could count spanking on maybe one hand, maybe. But the thing is, as far as raising confident daughters, I think you've got to build up their self-confidence each and every day. I mean, you've got to tell them, you can do this, you can do that. Why are you afraid to try to do this? You can do this. You're just as smart as the next person in the room. And when you instill that in them each and every day, they do grow up to be very confident, compassionate, loving human beings, which is, as a parent, that's all you want for your children. And that's what she is. And I'm very, very proud of my girl. Both of them, really. So just be there for them. When they're hurting, when they're happy, when they're sad, try to be there. Now, my wife, though, she's my better half. She was the one that was the emotional side, and she would tell me things that I'm like, what? Girls feel that way? So I've kind of learned things through my life as well. So, but you always support them, good and bad, good times and not so good. What is the best thing about being a dad? For me, it was everything. I love being there, being their coaches, being their dad. Everything. I know that doesn't say a lot, but I mean, there's a lot of things that you go through over the years that you see them change, you see them grow, and just being part of that, each child is a gift. You only have them for a certain amount of time, and just seeing that they're growing into these beautiful people, it's just, for me, it's just awesome. Being a dad, I told Haley one time, I said, do you know what my favorite job in the world is? And she said, yeah, you love pharmaceutical sales. And I said, no. I said, being your daddy was my most favorite job in the whole world. And that's the way I view it. And now that she has her own 4 boys, we get to kind of spoil them just like we did her. So again, that's, for me, my wife is the cake of life, and my children and grandchildren are the icing on that cake of life. So anyway, so that's the way I feel.